Broadcasting from the confines of an abandoned radio station in the secluded apartment building of high strangeness from the foothills of the Colorado Rockies, it's time for full disclosure of the topics they told us were off limits. Hello there, I'm Connie Willis. This is Coast to Coast AM. And tonight, dark art, the Flatwoods Monster, and hey, happy Willisween! Yeah, 'tis the season. Also, time now to turn off the lights. Join me for another interesting evening of conversation, much needed education, and the chance that we might get a little closer to the truth of what lurks amongst us and what is beyond. I'm Connie Willis, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Hello there, and welcome to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. 'Tis the season. Willisween. Yeah, that means that it's Halloween time, right? How have you guys been doing with that? How have your costumes been? They're so different this year. There's a wide variety of them out there for, of course, the young and the old, and it's just really great that they go back to the iconic ones that we grew up with. Most people, I think, are around my age. I'm 28 years old, right? Okay, all right. So just joking a little bit, but across the board, seeing the different costumes is very nice, very fun, very well made. And, some people are just getting their stuff tomorrow and the next day and the day before. So some of you still have not gotten your costumes, but I know you've been having a good time. I've gotten a lot of emails along the way of all the fun festivals and carnivals during the weekend and the different schools and the churches and the different communities and subdivisions, things like that, right? And still yet to be here. And don't forget, we have Coast to Coast happening with George Norrie coming up on Tuesday night. But hey, I'm hoping you guys are having a good time out there. I know I have. Done the official Willisween on my show, Blue Rock Talk. And that's, of course, tonight going Willisween as well. You got to stay in the spirit. But I hope that you guys will join my show, Connie After Dark, Blue Rock Talk, and of course, Connie Willis, the podcast. And all you have to do is go to ConnieWillis.com. And it's always fun. We're always having a good time. And tonight we're going to do the same. Got some great guests a little later on. One of my good friends, Frank Feschino Jr. He's going to be talking about the Flatwoods Monster and more. Holy cow. Let me tell you, this man studies it hourly, not just daily, but hourly, since it's all begun for the most part. He knows his stuff. So we got him coming on later, a little spooky stuff for you tonight. And before that, though, we have Mr. Sam Sheeran with us tonight. He's been with us before. He came in during Christmas at one point. We talked about the creepy Christmas, and we'll talk about that tonight, too. But Mr. Sam Sheeran, that's where you can go to find and learn more about who our next guest is coming up, and that's Mister Sam Sheeran is SHEARON.com. And if you go to our website, you can see the different pictures for both of our guests tonight, and absolutely amazing artwork, absolutely amazing. In fact, even Sam has put something together, of course, for the Flatwoods Monster. How could you not? It's one of the most famous ones out there, classic stories if you've never heard it. And the funny thing is, I don't think you do hear it that often, but as soon as you do, you're like, oh, I remember that one. It's absolutely amazing and very telling in so many ways. So let's go back to Sam here, who's been on once before with me, and he's the British dark artist. He specializes in the unexplained, horror, science fiction. His art and his work often includes elements inspired by ancient cultures, folklore, legend, the occult, even his own research as well. Now, Sam, welcome back to Coast AM. I'm going to brag on you, but I want to make sure you help me with all the names. Is that okay?
Hi, Connie. Yes, that's fine. How you doing?
I'm doing great. They say I have an accent, but I think you might have a tiny one too. And I like that accent. You just always sound classy all the time. Do you hear that often or just
now
for
and
me?
Again. Yeah, I have a very mixed accent because of course, I live in Los Angeles for the last 15 years or so on and off. But I was originally born in Liverpool. And so my accent is sort of in between Liverpool, northwest of England generally, and a little piece from here and there everywhere else.
When did you move to the States?
Officially a couple of years ago, though I've sort of always had a sort of real interest in Bigfoot, and so it's always brought me out every summer for the past 15 years or so. And of course, eventually I moved over.
Where are you? Where are you looking? Where are you doing your research with Bigfoot?
If you've watched, of course, a lot of your listeners will be familiar with Finding Bigfoot. You'll know that Bigfoot is in every state. So,
that's right.
While spending time in the U.S., wherever I've visited, whichever state it is, I've always looked up what are the local legends, where's the latest Bigfoot sighting, or what's the history of that area. But generally speaking, you have to go to Willow Creek, California. You have to go to Washington, Oregon, and even New York State. Those are the sort of key areas.
Well, I'm gonna jump on you a little bit here, and I'm gonna say Colorado Rockies, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Pennsylvania. I'm gonna throw them all at you because I'm your biggest researcher out there of it, and you'll have to come out one time with me at one point, and we'll show you some new ones that you can draw. How's that?
I'd love to. Yeah. No,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that would be great. I think they're probably out there going, just keep talking. I love that accent. So you have created artwork for a lot of rock and metal music scenes, people, comic book, which awesome, graphic novels. But I want to say some of these names because I don't know all of these names, but I know some of these names. So there's Jason Charles Miller, Rob Zombie, Slayer, Ministry. Is it Ramstein or Rammstein?
It depends where you're from.
Okay.
I think either works.
Okay. Filter, Iron Maiden, Kiss. Hey, I was in Kiss Army. Which one did you do for Kiss? Which one was Kiss?
I did a series of comic book cover artworks. They had Kiss Comics, obviously, have been going for sort of decades, but IDW Publishing put a collection of hardbacks together of all the classic comics and in different volumes, and they hired me to do the cover artwork to sort of give them a new face in a way.
So cool. That is really special. That really is, Sam. That's special to be asked to do these types of things. We're talking Stan Lee, the X-Files. Those are just a few of the names. If we go down and we talk to some of the let's see, Coffin Case. What was Coffin Case and ESP Guitars? What's all that?
Well, Coffin Case is my good friend Johnny Coffin, Jonathan Edwards. He runs the Coffin Case company that's been going for forever now. Timeless, immortal, as the vampires would say. But they are literally guitar cases in the shape of a coffin. And they're fantastic pieces of equipment that, you literally lay your guitar or your bass guitar inside this coffin-shaped hard case, carry case. And lots of bands use it. They go on tour with these cases. And, of course, if you're in that kind of music, it really fits the scene and the vibe. And ESP Guitars, that's one of the best guitar companies in the world, period. That just, if you want a good guitar, ESP, there's your brand.
So what did you do for them? You created art that goes, or their logo, or?
Oh, with ESP Guitars, it was, this is going back a minute now, but I was hired to create some graphics that would be the imagery that goes on the guitar body itself. So I did a series a long time ago called Clockwork Zombie, and we did 6 different designs, 6 different guitars, and they did a limited edition run of those that were sort of, worldwide sold, and they were quite popular.
How fun. I just saw somebody on today, some sort of commercial, and somebody had a guitar and they were talking about the soul of music and things like that. And they had this really unique guitar. And I thought, man, who comes up with these ideas? And now, hey, I got an answer. Isn't that great? You throw out a question to the universe, you get an answer as quickly as that. You also did a lot of artwork for Puma, for sports.
Currently, yeah, it's sort of an ongoing thing, and that's sort of eventually going to be hitting the airwaves. But I've done a lot of work with, more than anything, Proton Pedals is a guitar pedal company. I don't think they're any longer pushing out new types of pedals, but they're certainly one of the other big brands that I've attributed my artwork to.
So is it always dark?
It is, yeah. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy the company of kittens and small animals. Of course I do, and I love fruit. But I'm not going to be illustrating bowls of fruit or kittens. So, yeah, my interests definitely lie in the darker side, or the things that you don't see every day. I just find generally more interesting.
Right, right. Well, we got David Weatherly, who we've had here on Coast many, many times. Um, let's see, this is all out of my head, so you might want to throw out some too. Whitley Strieber, you've done work for.
Yeah.
Paranormal Magazine, I remember that. You have to help me here. You got to throw out a few. Any more that you can think of?
I mean, my work's just everywhere. Honestly, it sounds ridiculous, but I sort of never stop, and I get so busy I forget what I've done, and that sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet. But honestly, the older I get, I fear that my memory is going because I literally draw blanks. And as you know, when someone puts you on the spot and you're asked to remember something, you never can. But
I'm in the same way. That's why I'm throwing it at you.
Yeah, with David Weatherly, I mean, I absolutely love David. We've done more than 20 books together now.
He's got a new one out.
Yeah,
Did you just do that?
It's one of his sort of the Monster series that we've been doing, which is every single state in the U.S. Will be a book, and we're currently, I think, at number. See, here we go. I've lost track already. I think we're at book number 16, I think, which is Colorado. And basically, he covers all of the cryptids and legends from that state, and he'll have a different enthusiast or expert from the world of cryptozoology or the supernatural to do the forward for each book as well. So it's a real collection, and eventually all 50 books will be on the shelf, and it'll be quite something to behold once this is all put together. And we're slowly, chipping away at each state as much as we can every year. It's a case of only how much can David research and write in the same speed as how much can I illustrate. With everything going on, I think we've worked pretty well so far.
Well, he hasn't called me yet, and I'm here in Colorado, so he better be contacting me and saying, "Hey, what else is going on?" No, I'll keep my secrets.
Yeah.
I got to keep you got to keep your secret spots too, by the way. You gotta do that, or people will mess around with you. So, how did all this start with you? That you started doing the dark arts, and everybody knew to call you to do the comic books or their album cover. I mean, were you into the research of it as a kid, and then you were also pretty good in art class, and then it just kind of happened, or how did that go?
I think you've answered the question there. I mean, really, I think it's the same for anybody, who's sort of interested in the unexplained as a whole, just across the board, whether it's ghosts or UFOs or indeed cryptozoology. It all does stem from childhood, I think, for everybody. And it's whether they've seen a TV show or a movie, or whether they've had an experience themselves, it sort of draws you in. And I think some people are sort of just wired differently. Some people enjoy sports. A lot of my dear friends from high school, that I've known for 30 years, are very much sports enthusiasts, but I'm just wired differently, and it doesn't interest me. So when someone's talking about their favorite football team, I'll sort of tune out, and I just won't be listening because it doesn't appeal to me. And I think the same sort of thing happens when you start talking about Bigfoot or ghosts. People who are not interested in that, they tend to sort of tune out. But with me, I just say it's something that sort of organically grew throughout childhood into my teens and college and onward, to the point where, I thought, well, hey, I can illustrate. I'll be a part of this world and sort of help it move along and illustrate the researchers alongside me to make the world a better place, in a sense,
Oh, I like that. When you said they just kind of, if you bring up Bigfoot, they just kind of, look the other way, or no, they run. They usually run. They usually run from you. I've certainly seen that too.
I was saying today to a friend, I have quite literally sent people to sleep at the dinner table talking about Bigfoot, and I'm not exaggerating. I will be chatting away about, all of the little anecdotes and information that you could have possibly have read about Bigfoot. And if someone doesn't know, but they show a little interest, the floodgates come open, don't they? And you share, well, have you heard this, though? And have you heard this? And then before you know it, they're sort of, their eyes are closing and they're nodding. And you think, oh, dear.
Oh, you're that guy. Okay, now we know.
I'm that guy. Yeah.
So when was the first time you, when did you know that you were good with arts? And was it always kind of when you were a kid, did you just do like comic booky type things or cartoony or did you have a certain style and then you decided to focus in on something, or tell me more about the art part?
Well, as far as I'm aware, it runs in my family. My Aunt Kathy was an artist, a very famous artist who lived out in Spain. And my mother just encouraged it from my childhood. She said that I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. But it's my great auntie Terry was also an artist, and it all blends into the family sort of vibe that even my cousin's kids are now drawing. So it's the next generation coming up are also drawing monsters, and so I'm delighted, and I will always encourage that. But it's the sort of thing where once you have that encouragement and you have the sort of the push and the freedom to really explore that, it's good. And not everybody has that. So I'm quite fortunate in the sense that, other kids will be told that they won't ever have a career in art or that, get a real job and that kind of thing. And it's very upsetting when you hear about that sort of thing happening to people who genuinely have a talent or an eye, or they're just really interested and enthusiastic and they want to do it. But it really can, it can grab you at any point in life. You could be in your 40s like Picasso and suddenly decide, oh, well, I've cracked something here, and you start creating. And the same, I can assume, can go for writing or music or acting. I think it was Alan Rickman didn't really get into major motion pictures until he was 44. So, it can really hit anyone at any point. But as you say, it has sort of been a thing for me where I've just always drawn. And of course, I went through high school, I went through art college, I went through university, and in all honesty, I was sort of, I look back on it and I think I didn't really pick anything up from education. I'm not knocking education. I think it's a brilliant thing to have a sort of social side around you of people. But in terms of learning art, you can teach it. I don't think you can learn it. You have to develop it yourself. And I think it really comes from the individual, which is why everybody's so different in the art world and music.
I think you're right. Going to college myself, basically worked with the dean at the University of Kentucky just to get the performance classes, the TV classes, the hosting classes, whatever it was I needed to do what I wanted to do, because they didn't really have the curriculum to go into the things I wanted to do. So it was constantly, I'm going to get my education from my parents. It's kind of like that. So let me at least figure it out to where it's fun for me. And I got to create my own classes with some of the professors. It was just one-on-one. And so that totally helped. Yeah, that totally helped. And then my parents could be proud and I could be like, oh, I just want to go experience it. I just want to do it. So, just like you're talking about the developing, I mean, you really learn like in TV and radio and film, like my thing, once you jump in, boom, that's where it happens. And just like you in drawing. So let me go back. So I remember in like elementary school, we would all we'd be given a piece of paper and it would be, okay, draw something on it. And maybe we would draw for 5 minutes and then they'd say, all right, pass it on to the next, to the person in front of you. And then they would add some sort of art to that picture and you would to the one that was just pushed off to you. And do you know what I'm saying? And we would do that for maybe an hour and we'd have 5 minutes of taking a piece of paper from the person who just drew something on the 8x10 piece of paper and passed it up, right? Okay, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense right now, the visual?
I mean, I know, yeah. I mean, I absolutely understand what you're saying, but I've never experienced that. And
you never did that?
I would absolutely hate that. That sounds awful.
No. It was actually pretty cool because at the end you would look at the picture and it was really cool because, and that's where I had started drawing like little aliens and things like that. And so I'm just wondering if that's what you were doing. And it was funny because you'd see little aliens and then somebody else a flower in a house and this and that. And you could just see it all come together and somebody would have alien shooting at, somebody else or abducting, all that kind of stuff. So I just wondered if that would, it would be fun to have seen what you drew if you did go through that. I think that would be funny because you get to add on.
I mean, that's That's something that we never did at our school. But what we did do was we had these two big wooden sort of chest of drawers, and in each drawer there would be pages that the teacher had previously collected from various magazines. And so the girls would have all these fashion magazines, and the boys, of course, would have all these sports magazines. And we were told in the art lesson, and this is when you're sort of around 13, I think, to pick a page or two out of the drawer, and then you would use that as your life drawing reference, because at that age you didn't have a life model. You weren't old enough to sort of have a naked person in the room. So you would draw from a magazine. And what I would do is, because I was so fascinated with Greek mythology and monsters and things like the Minotaur, Medusa, the Hydra, I would.
And we would probably.
Alter.
Oh, and I guess we would probably see something like that. Let me come back to what you're talking about, because we want to learn more about that and not miss out on it. We got to take a break. Specializing in the unexplained, horror and science fiction and more, it's Mr. Sam Sheeran. Check him out at MrSamSheeran.com to learn more, and check out our website. He's got great pics on there, like Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. Hopefully you will find my shows at ConnieWillis.com. Even if you just sign up for the newsletter, I would love for you to do that. And then you can later on join Blue Rock Talk, Connie After Dark, and Connie Willis, the podcast. Yes, I'm about to start that up. Yes, thank you for all the emails. Yes, I really appreciate that. Y'all are very kind. You really are. And by the way, Blue Rock Talk taking you on live investigations of Bigfoot, hauntings, and strange lights, and seeing lots of those creatures around. It's always fun to talk to other people that are into the research as well. The real deal, getting out there, not just reading the books, but really getting out there too. And that's who we're talking to tonight right now, Mr. Sam Sheeran. He's the guy that you've seen some artwork and go, man, that's wonderful. And it might just be Sam's. So I think it's really cool. That's why he's here with us tonight, to talk about his art. And sorry about this, Sam. We had to go into a commercial break, but I definitely wanted to hear the rest of your story, because you started getting into drawings of Medusa and so forth.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, we all need commercials, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's great. What I was saying was, we would draw at school. We were given, the boys would be given sports figures to draw from magazines, and the girls would be given fashion magazines and to draw the women in the magazines. And that was the teacher's way of saying, this is how you learn the human form. But because I was interested in mythology, and Greek mythology in particular at the time, I would I would alter these sports figures. So instead of holding a cricket bat, they'd be holding a sword or an axe, and I'd give them a bull's head. Or I'd just simply give them hooves, or make them into some kind of a lizard man, And of course, it wasn't particularly popular with the teacher, and he would be quite annoyed and would sort of hold it up. He'd sort of snatch the paper from in front of me and hold it up for the class to see, and he would say, Sam Sheeran will never amount to anything but drawing comic books. And well,
cheers,
he was right,
bravo.
He?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I should send him some and sign them for him.
I think you should definitely do that. I would have been your friend. We would have been hanging out. There would have been no question about that. I love it. Something else you could have done, though. You could have been in radio. Come on, dude. Your voice is wonderful. It works.
Oh, too kind. Thanks very much. Well, here's the thing. Here's another issue of mine. And I'm sure you can relate. There's never enough hours in the day, are there? And with everything that I do in terms of illustration and writing as well, my own podcast has sort of been sitting on the shelf for, a couple of years now, because I just simply haven't had the time. But that is eventually going to be happening.
That's what I keep saying about mine. I just, I pushed it out there, and then I was like, I got to take a break. I need a break. I understand totally. So what will it be called? Mr. Sam Sheeran, Mr. Sam, or Mr.?
I don't know.
Just you?
I've sort of gone around the houses trying to think of a catchy name, or a short name, or just my own name, and I haven't really landed on anything just yet.
Stick with your name. Stick with your name. I think that's good. Then we can find you, right?
That's true.
Then we can find you. I like it that way. Okay, so last time I had you on, I'd found you because I was looking around at Christmas time and I thought, what can we do on Christmas that's still coast to coast, And then I kept looking around, a creepy Christmassy kind of thing. And then I found I looked totally I Googled creepy Christmas, and that's where I found you originally. And, here it is where you have a lot of artwork right now for Halloween. Absolutely, for people, but we got coming up Christmas too. That's, I guess, it's time to go ahead and talk about that.
Well, yeah. Christmas is, for me, it's my favorite season. Most people would be surprised when I say that because of the artwork that I do for heavy metal bands and horror authors and, all of the dark art, as we were talking about before. People are shocked when I say that Christmas is, in fact, my favorite season. But in truth, Christmas is the darker of the seasons. It's darker than Halloween, and people would roll their eyes and say, no, it isn't, that's ridiculous. But if you actually look into the history books and read about the origins of Halloween, it's not too beyond, the Celtic origins of Scotland and then Ireland, and maybe 2,000 years ago is sort of the birth of Halloween over there in Europe. But Christmas and the winter season, the Yuletide season, and the pagan and rather heathen origins of the people from the heath, the sun worshippers, the snake worshippers, the true pagans, if you will, they really celebrated Christmas in a different sense. And I call it Christmas because today that's what we would refer to it as. But they would, of course, have the season of death and the dark time and the shadows and all of the elements of cold and end of year and end of life. And they would get ready for the rebirth. And so you have a lot of Christian traditions around Christmas, which actually find their origins in pagan and heathen religions. The mistletoe is, in fact, part of an old tradition, pre-Christian. Wreaths, even, of holly, even gift-giving itself has its roots in earlier than Christian times of Christmas practices. But the dark side of it, even in Victorian times, pre-Santa Claus existing, people would tell ghost stories. People would gather around the fire and keep warm and try and stay together and share stories of the darkness. And really it was sort of warnings in a way to keep children close and to stop them from wandering off into the snow and maybe getting lost. And so other creatures would be invented or perhaps even just told about, maybe not invented, maybe these things were real. Nobody really knew, particularly Krampus. There never seems to be anyone who can say exactly where that came from. The origins of Krampus are so sort of steeped in variation across country to country. There's no telling where it really began, and he has variations on the name. Much like Santa Claus, there's so many different gift givers and the magi and the wise men that would go door to door, these big bearded pagans who knew about herbs and spices, and they would bring gifts and make sure everyone was okay. The Krampus was the sort of the opposite, the Perchton and the witches of the woods, and all of these different magical creatures that you were supposed to be terrified of were very real back in the Dark Ages. And it was sort of co-opted and changed and sort of switched into Christian practices to sort of sway heathens over to the Christian religion and sort of to leave those earth-worshipping practices behind by adopting some of these things into Christian traditions that we have today to really win people over. And so the darker side is something that few people really know about. You could even look at the Norwegian religion where you have Odin flying across the sky, drawn by goats and horses with 8 legs, and all these fantastical Greek mythology-type creatures are all found in Norwegian mythology as well. Giant serpents, giant wolves, bears. And it all sort of ties into the season of death at times where you'll have people flying across the sky deciding who's going to die that year. So you'd have to give gifts to the gods to sort of be spared. But again, it's sort of tradition to make sure that everybody had everything that they needed to stay warm. It's just a way of scaring people. It wasn't always about happy green and red lights.
Well, they even, when you start doing Bigfoot research and you're going out into the woods all the time, you do also stop and think how you're kind of taught as kids, well, don't stay out in the woods at night. Come on in. And there's reasons why, because we know what's out there. Those of us that had stayed out there late. And, that had to go back in centuries ago where it was like, no, we know what's out there. Come on, don't go out there in the dark, Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, the wild man itself is
yeah.
It's tied in synonymous with Krampus, these sort of beast men that would live in the woods. And, of course, throughout Europe, this was always told, woven in with stories of werewolves, to warn people, don't wander off in the woods at night, particularly at winter, because you will be eaten. And so the stories of the wild men, and, of course, we do have reports going back of the woodwolves and the wild men of Europe, these giant hairy men, or as some would say, the European Bigfoot. All the way across through to Russia and beyond, we have these stories of these giant hairy men that lived in the woods. And I think a lot of the Krampus legends probably stemmed from that as well, because someone obviously saw some big hairy beast man and thought, oh, well, that must be the devil.
Yeah. Well, I'm on your site, MrSamSharon.com. I'm on your site. If anybody goes to his site, make sure you hit the word home. That's what opens up the gallery of pictures and all the different things that you do. I'm looking, it's just amazing. Your artwork is absolutely amazing. So I guess if somebody says, okay, I want, like maybe I came to you with my show Blue Rock Talk and I said, hey, my show's called Blue Rock Talk. We do live investigations, going out and searching for Bigfoot and strange lights and hauntings and stuff like that. Do you then at that point put all the stuff in your head and then create something for me? I mean, because I don't just have to be a rock and roll star, right? Or an author. Maybe you could do something like that. Is that kind of how it happens, or is okay? Because some of these obviously are pictures like, okay, here's a Bigfoot, to where you go, okay, let me do a Bigfoot. But some things you kind of create. Have you created your own entities?
For the most part, no. I find it really interesting that there's so much out there if you dig deep enough. I mean, to go back to the creepy Christmas world that I'm sort of neck deep in at the moment, that's really sort of my thing right now, is to sort of branch that out with the artwork that I've done. And so every year I've released, 13 new versions of different old world characters and creatures from mythology. But also, in terms of inventing creatures, it's interesting you say that, because when someone has a witness report of something strange that they've seen in the woods, I've been approached in the past to illustrate these things, to sort of give it a realistic, flesh it out sort of thing to demonstrate what someone may have seen. And what I try to do is I don't try to sort of do a Salvador Dali and go all wild with it. I'll try and use the sort of natural history aspect of what could possibly exist. What would this look like if it really did live and breathe? And so I'll draw from my own interest of natural history to really make something look realistic rather than embellish or make it look fantastical. But then, of course, there are things that are just absolutely weird, like the Yosemite night crawlers.
Oh, yeah. That's so weird. That's just so weird. And you did a good job from what I remember the video. Did you do it from the video?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, the video, I mean, we've sort of established that those, in fact, are most likely hoaxes. But that's not to say that people haven't seen these things. And you do occasionally get, people hoaxing Bigfoot, but that doesn't mean it's not real. There are absolutely these creatures out there. People have seen these things crossing the road, and the night crawlers as well, whatever you want to call them, night striders, night crawlers, these strange white entities which don't even look human form. They're very peculiar. Those I illustrated purely on the fun of it, based on the videos that are most likely not real, in the video, that is. But I wanted to make it look as though, if they were, what would they look like? Because, of course, these videos are always blurry and a little grainy, and you can't quite make out what it is. And so I wanted to sort of give that a high-resolution reveal of, okay, this is what they would look like.
And it's great. I mean, you can see like the bone structure underneath it, and I don't know, some sort of skin and see through, and then the head's right on the hip of the legs. It's really great.
Yeah.
And I love your going back to creepy Christmas. I love the gingerbread boy going after, walking around with a little face. So tell me about that. Time flies here. I definitely want to hear about the cards. I mean, like, you can do artwork for people, but you've got like cards, coloring book, and all sorts of really neat things that are coming up for Christmas. I just love them. Playing cards too.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, for me at the moment, as an artist and now writer as well, it's really become a passion over the last 10 or 15 years, where on the one hand, I'll be doing, cryptozoology artwork, supernatural artwork for, David Weatherly, Ken Gerhard, even Shannon LeGros with her podcast Into the Fray. All of the artwork for that kind of thing is very much my day-to-day. But on the side of it, my passion, when I have a spare minute to myself, is this creepy Christmas universe. And I'm really trying to sort of explore that. And so every year I've tried to encourage people to look at my work through the Christmas eyes, by revealing a different set, as I was saying, of Christmas cards every year. And currently I'm writing a book of short stories, so look out for that in 2025.
You are staying busy. And is your podcast where there's a seance with Sam? Is that with the podcast?
That's actually just live drawing. So that's through Patreon, in fact. And so every Wednesday I will sit down for an hour or two, and people who are sort of members of the Patreon group on there can watch me draw live and hang out in the chat, and we'll talk about all kinds of nonsense. It's a good group of people in there, which is nice because they've all sort of connected to each other and they've created their own little community, which is really, really nice. But I'll sit there and I'll draw every week live. So that's Seance with Sam.
I love that. And that's the Patreon.
Yeah.
So, I like that.
Sort of a monthly thing.
Okay, excellent. That I will definitely have to check out, because that'll be fun to watch you do that and just chat. I understand about the community thing. We have that with our Coast Insiders. We have that with my show, Blue Rock Talk. It's just amazing when the community comes together like that. It's fun, Hey, that's the way the world is now, finding our little niches, and it's fun to be a part of it. So I definitely want to check out that. So, wow. So where can people find you otherwise? Where would you like for people to go to catch you?
Well, generally speaking, as you mentioned before, my website has all of the social media links. There's a YouTube link on there where you can watch time-lapse videos of me drawing as well. The Patreon links on there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All of the links are on MrSamSheeran.com. And
so you're going to go bigfooting with me in the future, correct?
I sincerely hope so.
We got to pull you out of L.A. I know it's hard for some people in California. They can't leave Southern California. They're like, this is the only place to be. I love the creepy Christmas, and I love what about people if they want to get something Halloweenish right now? I mean, they can still get stuff from you.
They can, yeah. You can visit the Big Cartel store, which is also linked on my website there. So you can sort of scroll through and have a look, and you can see all kinds of strange creatures, cryptozoology, everything you could imagine.
And you did the Flatwoods Monster, which we're going to talk about next with Frank Feschino, and it is on our website, so you guys can check that out too. So I really like that you put that together. And you have not met Frank before, right? You have to meet Frank at one point and just have a conversation with him. The man knows it all. He knows it all. You two together would be amazing.
I'd love to sit down and have a coffee with that chap.
Yeah. Oh, well, you'd have to have coffee for the next 3 months for hours a day, because he'll tell you everything. But I hope you'll stick around and listen to the rest of the show with him on it. And thank you so much, Sam, for showing up and your work. It's wonderful stuff. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Connie, and have a happy Halloween.
Absolutely. Willis Ween here, and creepy Christmas for you too. That's what he's got. Check out his website, you guys, Mr. Sam Sheeran. And let me spell that for you. It's Mister. The Mister is, and then the Sam, right? And then the Sheeran, Shearon, Mr. Sam Sheeran. Great guy, a lot of fun. Love the accent and love the artwork. Go to our website. You'll see some just amazing stuff too on coasttocoastam.com. Now, what we got coming up next is our guest, Frank Feschino Jr. He's a friend of mine as well. And he's going to be talking about what happened from 1952 in the Flatwoods Monster on Coast to Coast AM.